Hello, hi, this is Sam, and welcome to Science Institute of Education. Today, I'm going to do vocabulary. Let's continue with what we were doing before. Right? I have brought some nice C2 based words, especially a mixture of adverbs and adjectives, verbs, as well as nouns. I'll be explaining you each and everything today. Right? These words are going to be very beneficial, especially for your speaking as well as for your writing. Now, whether you are taking IELTS or you're taking any other examination of English, and even for your daily communication, these words are going to be very effective. Okay, so let's begin. Not many words, only 10 another words are brought for you. So, the first word that we are going to do is timid. We can also say intimidated, or I can also say bashful. This is a timid, intimidated, bashful. What does it mean? They all mean fearful, or you can also say lack of confidence. Right? Timid, intimidated, bashful. Now, how we can make an example? Let's say I always become timid when it comes to speaking English in front of people. So I always become intimidated, I always become bashful when it comes to speaking. Now, this is a grammatical structure. When it comes to plus gerund form of the verb, right? So when it comes to speaking English in front of people, let's say, I don't know how am I gonna remove this barrier. Right. So I always become timid when it comes to speaking English in front of people. I don't know how I'm gonna remove this barrier. Right. So this is how we can use the word timid, fearful. Okay. घबरा जाना in say Hindi, right? So घबरा जाना, मैं बहुत ज़्यादा घबरा जाता हूँ जब ये चीज़ करता हूँ. Right. You can also form a negative sentence like I never become timid when it comes to speaking English in front of others. Right? Perhaps it could be because of like that I have been practicing it, speaking from many years. Right? So for that reasons, I can confidently say that I have gained tremendous amount of confidence. Right? So you can speak like that. Timid. I'm not timid with this, or I become timid. Right? I hope this one's clear. The first. Now let's move on. Second. So second word that we gonna do today is callous. Its pronunciation is callus, right? So I'll just write callus, callus, right? Callus. Now, what does it mean? It means when a person is, like when you become insensitive, right? Emotionless. So when a person becomes insensitive, that means callous. Insensitive, if someone doesn't know, then emotionally, when you are like emotionally, when you become very hard, right? When you become emotionally strong, right? So for that, you can use callous, emotionally hard or strong. right? So when you're emotionally hard, strong, your person is insensitive, right? That is known as callous. Now, let's make an example. For example, now I can say that I became callous because of the suffering I confronted in my life till date. Right. I became callous because of the suffering I confronted in my life till date. I became callous, right? I became emotionally strong, right? Why? Because of the suffering that I faced. In spite of face, I'm using confront or encounter. Right? Encounter or confront, these two words you can also use in spite of face. So I became callous because of the suffering I confronted in my life till date, right? So whatever sufferings, whatever bad things happened to me, they really made me, right, emotionally strong, right? So this is how you can use the word callous. I hope this one's clear. You can also use these words in a writing task too if you're taking IELTS. Now, obviously, over there, you don't have to say, I became callous, right? So it's just whenever you are describing about people, emotion, right? Or like any essay would come, like work related, right? So people are working in an organization, right? So how they have to become emotionally strong, right? So people become callous, right? You can make the sentence like that. Okay, now let's move on to number 3. So timid, callous, right. Candor. Now, this is candor, right? Simple word, candor. Not condor, it's candor. Candor. What it means, um, if you know, like, for example, if someone is telling you, like a person is telling that you are quite boring, right? So you are sitting in a group, right? And someone is telling you that, like, hey man, don't mind, but like you're quite boring. So you can say, well, thanks for your honesty, right? Thanks for your honesty. I don't think we need to be friends anymore. So which means the person who's telling you the truth, like who's being very honest, right? That person is candor. So in like indirectly way, you can say, for example, let's say if someone tells you that you are quite boring. So in return, what you can say, right? While I appreciate, right? While I appreciate. So you're telling, like you're appreciating his honesty. So while I appreciate your candor, I don't think we need to be friends anymore. Right. While I appreciate your candor, I don't think we need to be friends anymore. So, candor means specifically when you're being honest to someone. Right. So, I hope this one's clear. Candor means like when you are being honest. Right. Moving on. Number 4. Now, remember, these are C2 based words, right? Very beneficial. And I'm only going to do quite easy ones, which you can remember. Now, the way you will be recalling them in your daily routine is obviously by practice. So you need to make a couple of sentences, right? Then make up a short story. Like in the previous video, I also said, make a short story where you are compelling yourself to use all those words that you have learned. Right? This is how you will be enhancing your lexicons. Right. Now let's move. Number 4. Clamor. Clemor. So how? Clamor. Clamor. Clemor. Clamor. Now what does clamor means? Clamor means when, when you demand person or, group of people, when you demand something loudly, right? So that's where we use the word clamor, right? Demand something loudly. Now let's make a sentence from there. It will be clear to you. For example, farmers, these days, as we all know, right? So they are protesting, they are demanding loudly, right? So farmers are, like farmers clamor in front of the legislation, right? So how we can make that sentence? Let's say people clamor, right? People clamor about their rights in front of the legislation, right? In front of the authority, you can say, or in front of the legislation. So people clamor about their rights, right? They are demanding loudly. Okay, so people clamor about their rights, which means they are demanding loudly, right? Clamor means basically, like also we did one word in vocabulary, I think first or second session, and that we did raucous, right? Raucous also means, like harsh, loud noise. Here also it means the same, clamor, like, but it's just when you're demanding, right? So you're protesting, right? So you're protesting loudly, you're demanding something loudly. It doesn't mean specifically about protest, but also in terms of children you can use, right? When they demand something, they like demanding loudly, right? So clamor is used over there when you demand something really loud, right? You're shouting. Okay, right. That was number 4. Now moving on, number 5. Clever. Now, how we normally use the word aware, right? Aware, like people should be made aware. People should be, like we should really we need to, let's say, make people aware about the importance of preserving environment. Like this is something sentence you can write in IELTS, right? Or you are even speaking while like having a conversation to someone. I think these group of people, this group of cohorts, they really need to be made aware about this thing or that thing. So when you have to speak, make aware, make aware, you can use the word conscientize, right? You can use the word conscientize, or you can also use the word which I'm going to give you now. It's cognizant. Cognizant. It means aware of something. Cognizant. Cognizant means aware of something. For example, like you're sitting in a group or something, and there are a couple of discussions going around, right? So you're not too much bothered about that, because in the end, you'll be shared with the meetings. Now, meetings, not like obviously the meeting. How the meetings are shared among people, like whatever was discussed and what was the conclusion, what was the opinion, final thought that was actually kind of a rule and regulation that is going to be implemented, and things like that, right? So that you will be aware of it, right? So that's where we use the word cognizant. Now let's make an example in order to understand it completely. Um, I am very well cognizant. Right now, I am very well cognizant about the ramification of eating a lot of pizzas. Right. So, ramification, this word, I hope you already know. Ramification simply means outcome, result. Right. I'm very well cognizant about the ramification of eating a lot of pizzas. Right. So, what would happen if you eat a lot of pizzas? All right, you become fat. For fat, also, we'll be doing one more word, very good word, we'll be coming across. Right, so I'm very well cognizant about the ramification of eating a lot of pizzas. Now, obviously, I'm very well aware, in spite of aware, cognizant. Right now, people should be made, like people should be made cognizant about, this thing, ramification of this thing, right? So you can use that in your task too, or any other sentence you're writing in your writing part, you can use this word, very good word, right? So I hope this one is clear to you. Cognizant is aware of something, right? Now that completes our 5 words. Let's do another 5 more. 6. Okay. Now, right. Let's do this word. Remorse. Remorse. Or compunction. What are these means? Remorse or compunction. Right. This is used obviously, as you can see, OION. This means noun. This is used as a noun. Right. So very. See, I'm telling you why I'm telling you adjectives as well as like nouns, because nouns, they contribute. Mixture of these words, they will enhance your score, especially in your IELTS. Right. So, because it's counted in grammar. Now, remorse and compunction, but let's understand what is the meaning of remorse and compunction, right? It means that, like, let's say, when you commit something wrong, you do something bad, and you know how you feel, what? Guilt, right? So, for that, you can use these words, remorse, compunction, right? Now, it's basically mean feeling guilty. Feeling guilty. Now let's make an impressive example in order to understand this. Now, let's say, okay, for example, his obvious, let's say his obvious, because someone, like, he did some kind of crime, right? And he didn't take his responsibility in a good way, right? So that led to obviously confirmation of threat, right? Obviously, let's write this. So his obvious lack of compunction, right? His obvious lack of compunction or his obvious lack of remorse, right? Anything you can use. His obvious lack of compunction and his obvious lack of compunction. All right, let's make and unwillingness, right? His obvious lack of compunction and unwillingness to accept, let's say his obvious lack of compunction and unwillingness to accept responsibility. His obvious lack of compunction and unwillingness to accept responsibility confirm the threat, right? His obvious lack of compunction, now lack of feeling guilt, like he did not feel guilt, right? And unwillingness to accept responsibility confirm the threat. So which means that it becomes a threat to some other person, right? Because he's not taking his responsibility, right? He's not taking his responsibility, and obviously lack of a function, like we did, like feeling guilt, right? So he did not, whatever he did wrong, like for example we can say another, let me give you, children when they do pickpocketing, pickpocketing, and they do some other, very petty crimes, right? So बहुत ही छोटे crime करके, and they, even you scold them and you ask them like, did you do that, and they always deny, right? So lack of compunction or remorse, they become remorse, right? They become remorse, which means they do not feel guilty. So I hope this one's clear too. Now let's move on. Number 7. Number 7, next word, conduit, conduit. Conduit, right? It's not conduit, it's conduit, con, right? Con, right? Like pros and cons, right? So conduit, right? Now conduit, what is conduit? Conduit, it's just like a small passage, let's say a very small pipe. It's basically known as a pipe, right? So where, like you can either take wires or water, right? Like for example, there is a small channel that is to the reservoir, right? So this particular thing is known as conduit, right? So very effective word in especially task 1. If you get anything related to water, and there is a one channel shown, pipe shown, of some kind of pipeline, right, which is connected to something, so you can use the word conduit there, right, to represent that particular channel, like, or either pipeline or anything like that. Now it can be used like that, and like also how people become mediators, right? So I mean, between one body and another body, there is some kind of a channel who's acting, in, so that these persons are not related, like they are not seeing each other, but there are intermediates sitting. They can also be called as conduits, right? So let's make a sentence for that in order to understand completely. A channel, right? So a pipe or anything. Now conduit, a small passage, let's say, like a small passage, you can also use for that. A small passage. Now let's make an example for this. For example, let's say a religious leader, right? A religious leader might be seen as a conduit, right? Conduit. A religious leader might be seen as a conduit who brings, let's say, who brings divine messages to the people, right? So a religious leader might be seen as a conduit who brings divine messages to the people. अच्छे विचार, अच्छे विचार, अच्छे messages वो लेकर आते हैं लोगों के लिए, right? So for that we can use the word conduit, right? Global leaders, right? Global leaders, now obviously, like there is a person sitting in between, let's say, prime minister, and obviously whatever he needs to address to the nation, he has a person, so personal assistant, right? Personal assistant can be called as a conduit, right? So anytime you're thinking, whether it comes to writing, right? In writing, you can say that these things, becomes conduit for these people, like messengers, So they are become like a passage. They become like a passage for the other body. That's where we use the word conduit. Okay. I'm sure this one's clear as well. Now let's move on. Number 8. What next word we can do? Let's do constituent. बहुत अच्छे वर्ड्स हैं, ठीक है, आराम से समझो. Constituent. Now constituent means, like, we know element, factor, right? They become constituent. मतलब वो एक एक बहुत अच्छा एक एस्पेक्ट, एक फैक्टर, ठीक है, एक एलिमेंट बन जाते हैं किसी चीज के लिए, राइट? सो दोस, फॉर दोस वी कैन यूज द वर्ड कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट, राइट? कोई इसको हम ये भी कह सकते हैं कंपोनेंट, राइट? वी कैन ऑल्सो यूज इट फॉर कंपोनेंट. Constituent, now it doesn't mean, you can use for either something or person. इधर आप s लगा लोगे तो क्या बन जाएगा? प्लूरल. सो विच मीन्स पीपल, राइट? सो नाउ लेट्स मेक an example. You must show respect you must show respect to coach, let's say, to coach Raghav and his constituents. ये हो गए उनके associates, right? So instead of associates, I'm just using the word constituents, right? Sometimes, we even write a beautiful expression that this has become, these persons, these people have become an important, like, significant element for the society, right? So in spite of that constituent, we can reuse, right? These have become a significant constituent for the society, or any particular thing, non-living thing. If you want to speak about, like, for example, mobile phone cameras, right? So we can use that word. Mobile phone cameras are considered as a significant constituent, right? In present era, because of which, right? So you can like, use those things, like something very important element, right? Now for that word, you can use the word constituent, right? Or element or component, right? So here means that एक चीज से काफी चीजें बनी हुई हैं. So just like, if you can think of, obviously camera, it's very crucial, right? Now you don't need to carry any bulky cameras, right? Because in mobile phones, we can see 48, 52, 60 megapixel, right? Cameras are already inbuilt, right? I hope this one's clear as well. Constituent, right? So which means element, factor, or component. Right, let's do number second last, number 9. Now, number 9 is, what should I think of? Okay, all right, let's do covet. 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 Very good word. Now, we always use the word, like, I'm very fond of, I'm very keen, I'm quite avid, right? I'm quite enthusiastic about, I'm really passionate about, right? Covet. What's covet? Covet means when you truly desire, you want something, right? You desire something. You want or you desire, right? Now, covet can also be used when, let's say, when you want something that others have. for this particular thing, like a jealousy factor you can speak about, like when some other have possession of something which you truly want, right? You can also use the word over there envy. envy. envy, this word is specifically for jealousy, for like when you have jealousy factor for those who have that like say those things or that thing which you really want. Over there specifically we use the word envy. It cannot be used for like desire or want. No, when you desire something that you want to have but other person is having, right? You have some jealousy factor there. Oh my god, how come he has that mobile phone and I don't? I have to do something, to get that thing, right? So there we use envy. Covet means simple want, desire, but can also used as envy. Let's make a sentence so that it can be clarified. Now, covet. I sometimes become covet, right? I sometimes become covet. I sometimes, so I sometimes covet, or I can also say simply covet as crave, right? I sometimes covet for having smart houses, that rich brats have. The houses which can be controlled from your mobile phone, not the house or like an entire building, but the things that are fitted inside, like your gates. Start from the gates, entrance, then you have your lights, then you have your like air conditioning and your cooking range, right? Your drawers, your each and everything, right? That is being controlled by your mobile phone. So these are the things which can be controlled by your mobile phone. So when you use envy, for something. Right. Now, number 10, corpulence. Remember how I told you, before in this video only, I was telling you about like you'll gain weight, you'll become fat, right? So this one was the word I was talking about, corpulence. Corpulence means when you gain like excessive weight. Excessive weight or fat, right? corpulence, corpulence, right? Let's make an example to understand. Excessive eating of pizza, right? Remember, it's not pizza, okay? It's not pizza, it's pizza. Let's say pizza. So pizza. This going silent. So pizza, right? Pizza. Now, excessive eating of pizza is inclining, बढ़ा रहा है, right? Is inclining me to corpulence, right? Don't use become here. बना रहा है नहीं. Corpulence means fat. So excessive eating of pizza is inclining me to corpulence, right? children are corpulence, right? Children, so obviously children are becoming, right? So like children can be seen, right? Children can be seen, we can say these days, for example, in writing task 2, you know, you can if you're writing any sentence that children it leads to, you know, so you can say that um, let's use an expression that I was saying, you know, like after full stop, for example, you're writing it is irrefutably true, or you can also write, you know, it is a cogent, right? It is quite cogent. Cogent means convincing, right? So we did this word cogent, cogent, convincing, right? So it is irrefutably true that excessive eating, so excessive eating of what, junk food or processed food leads to corpulence, right? So it is irrefutably true that excessive eating of junk food leads to corpulence, right? Which means obviously obesity. In spite of using obesity, we are using corpulence. So which means excessive weight or fat, right? So I hope these words were clear, right? Now use these words in forming any kind of short story or anything like that, you know, whichever you want, you feel like, trust me, they will be very beneficial, right? My new batch is going to start from next week onwards, from Monday, not this week, right? A file. So, you know, registrations are open already. Okay. And we also conduct spoken English sessions, right? So should you have any query, please, the number will be given in the description. You can catch us over there. All right. You have a very lovely day ahead. Thank you.